All right, I want to switch gears. Opening day for the MLB is tomorrow, and I could not be more excited. The Dodgers are 2-0. The Cubs are 0-2. They played in Japan a week ago. The rest of the league is starting fresh on opening day. It's a great time to be alive, right? And my question is, whose championship windows are open? And there's honestly a lot of teams because at the end of the day, realistically, it's baseball and anybody can do it. But I want to give sort of my playoff predictions. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not a baseball genius. In the past, in my life, I haven't watched enough baseball to be able to honestly make a video like this on my show. And throughout the offseason, I wasn't paying full close attention, right? But I have enough knowledge, I feel like, to be able to say what I'm about to say. My picks are going to be very safe. I'm not going to run through the whole of the playoffs. I'm just going to kind of give my division winners and then my wildcard teams. I want to just run through the NL and run through the AL real quick and kind of just highlight. The purpose of this is kind of just to get excited for the season. I want to highlight how many great teams there are. Because originally this was going to be a playoff contenders video, a pennant contenders video. It was going to be who could win the NL, who could win the AL, and I had 7 teams that I thought could win the NL, which is more teams than qualify for the playoffs, which is bonkers, right? It's going to be an incredible season. It's going to be an incredible October when we get to that point. Obviously, we have a whole regular season to sort of watch and enjoy until that point. But I want to start with the NL. I just want to give some playoff predictions. I want to highlight some of these teams that I think are awesome. The NL West and the 1 seed in the NL to me is the Los Angeles Dodgers. No surprise there. We can just whip right through that one. Far and away, I think that the Dodgers are the World Series contender. They won the World Series last year, and then they got so much better. On top of that, they looked, without all of their players, they looked dominant in the Tokyo series. They totaled, I think, a 10-4 victory in the 2 games against the Cubs back-to-back in Japan. I'm going to take that with a grain of salt because it's obviously 2 games out of 162, and they were played in Japan a week before opening day. So it is what it is, but the Dodgers looked awesome, and they are awesome, and their roster is stacked. They're the number 1 far and away contender, or favorite rather, to win the World Series. I'm going to have them winning the NL West, of course. The NL East is probably the most up-in-the-air division in the NL, in my opinion. The Phillies, I have winning the East, but the Braves and the Mets are right there, right? The East looks great, in my opinion, in the NL. The Phillies are due. They got so close. They were, of course, in the World Series 2 years ago. They lost. Excuse me, they were in the NLCS 2 years ago, and they couldn't break through. But the Phillies, I think, are great. They're consistent all the way around. Great lineup, great pitching staff, right? Great bullpen. The Phillies are great all the way around. I think they're going to win a lot of games. I don't know if they'll win the East, but they'll be a playoff team for sure, in my opinion. And then the NL Central, I think, is going to be won by the Chicago Cubs. Now, I don't know how good the Cubs are actually going to be. They got Kyle Tucker. They seem like they've upgraded and retooled enough to separate themselves from the past versions of themselves the past couple of years that have missed the playoffs. I think the Cubs are just going to be the best in the Central. I think it's really a 2-horse race between them and the Brewers. The Reds are good. I think the Reds are going to be fun. I think that the Cardinals maybe could flash in the pan, right? The Pirates aren't all that much. But I think it's the Cubs and the Brewers, and I think the Cubs have done enough to make up the difference between the Cubs and the Brewers from last season. I have them winning the NL Central. Also, I think they'd just be more fun in the playoffs than the Brewers would. And then you have the wild card, and I'm just going to real quick rapid fire through my wild card teams. I have the Mets in the wild card making the playoffs. I think they're going to be awesome. They retained Alonso. They brought in Soto. That lineup is going to be killer. I have the Braves in there as well. They're always in the mix. They're going to have some injuries to start the year, but I think that they're, again, always in the mix, always in playoff conversation. I think they'll make it back. And then I have the Diamondbacks. I think that people forget sort of how great the Diamondbacks could be. Obviously, they were a wild card team 2 years ago, but they did make the World Series. That was weird. They didn't win, but they were there, right? And then the following year, they just barely missed out on the playoffs in that tiebreaker to the Phillies. But keep in mind, they kind of, especially Corbin Carroll, had a slow start to the season, right? And they really sort of had some misfortunes early on, pulled it together, and it just wasn't quite enough. They very well could have been another wildcard team that, again, flashes in the pan and finds their way into the World Series again. They didn't get there. They weren't given that opportunity. But the Diamondbacks were very close, right? I think Arizona, considering the last 2 years and considering how much of that talent they've retained, what they've added, I think Arizona has an opportunity to be awesome. I'll pick them to make the wild card. It's unfortunate because they're great and they just would never be able to outpace the Dodgers. So Diamondbacks are a wild card team for me. We'll see what they do once they get to the postseason. I think they'll get there. The Brewers are just a step out, and the Padres just a step out. Very well could see the Brewers knock out the Cubs, right, as Central champions. Could see the Padres get in as a wild card team. NL's very good. The AL's more wide open, but the NL is great at the top. Dodgers, Phillies, Cubs, Mets, Diamondbacks, Braves. Those are the teams that I think will go to the playoffs out of the NL. The AL, on the other hand, is very up in the air. In my opinion, really every single division in the league, in the AL and in the NL, in the MLB, right? Every division in baseball, in my opinion, is up in the air, except for I think the Dodgers are going to win the NL West, and I think that the Cubs and Brewers is a pretty straightforward fight. But the AL West, I'm going to have the Texas Rangers winning the AL West. Yes, they still exist, right? Yes, they did win a World Series 2 years ago. I think that the AL East is going to go to the Orioles. I would have had the Yankees, but Garrett Cole's injury obviously is concerning. The Orioles are young. The East is messy in the AL. Why not, right? Why not have them repeat? They were, of course, the 1 seed just recently. I think they'll win their division once again. And then the AL Central is a complete crapshoot because the Royals have potential, the Twins have potential, the Guardians have potential, the Tigers have potential. We know the Tigers made the playoffs last season as a wild card. They kind of had some things break their way at the end of the regular season. But why not? Why not say the Tigers are going to win the AL Central? That's some level of homerism. I don't really have a favorite team in the MLB. There's no one in Indiana. The Indianapolis Indians are affiliates with the Pittsburgh Pirates, but I don't want to be a Pirates fan. The Cubs are too far, and it's too much of a bandwagon to be a Cubs fan. The Reds are too far. The Tigers are too far, but I like the Tigers. You know, Midwest team. And of course the other ones in the Central are, but I want to see the Tigers have something to cheer about. I'll pick them to go to the playoffs out of the AL Central. And then the wild card, I have Houston, Boston, and the New York Yankees. Houston, I think, is just going to be consistent. I think they're going to be, that awesome large market team that's going to continue to succeed. Boston, I think, is my favorite team in the AL. I love the Red Sox. I cannot wait to watch the Red Sox. They got Alex Bregman. This is a team that I love. I cannot wait to watch them. And, of course, their arch rival, the Yankees, lost Garrett Cole, but I just couldn't justify leaving them out yet, right? I couldn't justify leaving them out of the playoffs. If they don't make it, it's maybe the Seattle Mariners. I'd be very sad if the Yankees kind of fell by the wayside because of that Garrett Cole injury. We'll see how much of an impact that has on them. But the Yankees, I have in the playoffs still. The Red Sox, I think, are a very trendy pick to be there. The Astros, very trendy pick to be there. I would love an Astros-Red Sox wildcard series. I don't know where that would be. If we can get that in Boston, if we can get Astros at Red Sox 3 times in a row in like a wildcard series as the 4-5, absolutely stellar matchup in my opinion. The AL is very exciting. I'm very interested to see how it plays out just because it's so wide open, right? Who's the 1 seed in the AL? Is it Texas? Is it Baltimore? Is it really? Is it Boston? Maybe it's Boston. Maybe it's Houston. I have no idea. AL is wide open. A lot of those divisions are wide open. Whoever's the 1 seed in the AL, I think it's going to be really strange. And then once we get to the playoffs, it's going to feel... I think whoever's the 1 seed in the AL, it's going to feel really strange that they are the 1 seed in the AL. And then I think that once we get to the playoffs, it's just going to be bonkers round after round. And somebody has to go to the World Series, and somebody's got to take on probably the Dodgers. And I want to see how that goes. Whereas in the NL, I feel like there's some pretty clear star power, right? We know the Dodgers will be there. We know the Phillies will be there. We're pretty sure the Cubs will be there. The Braves, right? Probably the Mets. We kind of know who the best teams in the NL are, in my opinion. I think the Diamondbacks are in there as well. Maybe the Padres break through. Maybe the Brewers break through. I feel like we kind of have an understanding of what the NL is going to look like when we get to the end of the year. But then the question of how many of those teams can challenge the Dodgers, and when those teams play each other, if the Cubs play the Phillies at some point, right, or if the Phillies play the Mets or the Braves, we're gonna have some great baseball in October as we work into the playoffs. And I'm excited to watch the season play out to sort of get there. And I'm gonna follow the baseball season. I'm probably gonna talk a lot about baseball on this show, just because what else are we gonna talk about in July, right? Obviously, there's plenty of NFL to get to and things of that nature, but for the most part, I feel like baseball sort of represents it kind of drives the summer. So in the summer, I'm sure, obviously we'll have the NBA playoffs to talk about, maybe the NHL a little bit. The Fever will start up. The WNBA will have plenty of Colts to talk about the whole way through. But I want to talk about baseball, and I think I'm going to. I want to follow it. I want to be interested. I'm excited to see it all play out. That's kind of my playoff predictions. It's all very safe. But opening day is tomorrow for the MLB, and I'm certainly excited to get into watching baseball again very, very soon as this long, grueling 162-game season sort of gets kicked off.